Actual Garou, in the same day, you know, actual Garou news and stuff. So, some details on the new Fatal Fury / Garou game. Let's go here and see if it is in proper article form. At Gamescom 2022, they sat down with Oda to get as much information as they possibly could about the game. That being said, the new Fatal Fury is a very big release for SNK, so it'll be a little while before we see more. The developers want to make sure it's perfect before prime time. They mentioned that when he returned to SNK in 2014 after a long stint at DIMPS, one of the first things he said to the president was, please let me make a new Garou game. It took a while for the stars to align, but ever since then, beginning the series has been one of his goals. Wow, that's hilarious. We also learned that there is still a focus on online play and versus fighting. And the new Fatal Fury will also have a more focused on single-player content compared to most SNK re-releases or recent releases. Well, that's good because most SNK recent releases single-player content are essentially just slightly extended arcade mode stuff, right? What happens in like the team modes and stuff like that in KOF 15 is pretty bare bones. Like they never actually really made single-player content. They, unfortunately, SNK is still sort of stuck in, you know, even pre-Street Fighter 4 era of like single-player content in fighting games. They just need to put some effort into something interesting, right? I don't know if we need a story mode, but yeah, at least what Street Fighter 6 is doing is fascinating in some way. This shouldn't surprise you know that the Fatal Fury series has an extremely complex story, so it's not surprising that the new one may feature an extensive story mode. Speaking of the story, Oda-san acknowledged that the large time gap from the Fatal Fury release and today's creates a challenge because many of today's players aren't aware of what happened in the previous entries. The team is definitely thinking about that and the few plans to overcome it. I hope that Garou 2 essentially still stays in the 90s, because isn't Garou 1 in modern day when it came out? Isn't it? It's 1999. I think it actually is, right? It's still in the same way that like Third Strike was literally titled Fight for the Future because it was made in 1999 and the year 2000 was right around the corner. So it is a period accurate game, which means that the next game will have to be either in the year like 1999 or 2000 or something. It'll have to be not that big of a time skip. They won't age rock up. I don't think so. I think they're gonna have to keep it back in the old days. Which is kind of an interesting twist on a visual style for the game if you have to go back to the 90s or the early 2000s or something like that. Asked whether SNK will bring back an old Fatal Fury cast or enact some sort of old generation leap, Oda did not directly respond, but he did mention that Terry Bogard is definitely in the game. At the moment, the new Fatal Fury doesn't have a release window or announced platforms. We'll have to wait and see what SNK announces on that front down the line. Of course, you should stay tuned. Oh, that's it? That's it? Oh, man. Well, it's just the fact that they're treating it like a big game, right? It's not just some little thing that they're spitting out, right? No, they're going to treat it as like a mainline hero title. Possibly not like an SNK Heroines or something like that, where it's just like, here, this thing we've been working on. It's pretty crazy, right? I mean, I'm pretty thrilled about that. Like, getting a big Terry and Rock focused game sounds awesome. I still think one of the biggest challenges SNK has is to create a very visually captivating art style for one of their games. And I don't think, once again, I don't think the visuals of even Samurai Showdown and KOF 15 are specifically bad. I don't. But I don't think that their visual styling is specifically, like, striking, right? I think that's one of the biggest challenges that SNK has moving forward, is that their games are not bad looking by any means and have great animations and characters that look good. For them being what they are and the visual style that they are, which feels like a little bit of an upgrade over Street Fighter 4, is what it kind of feels like to me. They don't really scream to me like, dang, look at the visuals of this game. Like, maybe when you first see them, but they tend to just look kind of outdated. They look like they're one generation behind or something like that. So I think art style can carry games really hard. And I feel that maybe it's just the art style, like some of the way that the 3D characters are represented in KOF 15 and maybe going forward could be a little bit different. You know, I think that just could be it, right? They don't need to look like Guilty Gear Strive like, right? They don't need to go back to 2D craziness like KOF 13, even though we all want that. there just needs to be some sort of element to the visual stylings of, you know, SNK games that really puts it on like a new pinnacle. And I hope that eventually it gets there. The interesting thing about Garou is that I'd say the most captivating thing about this game is its visuals. You know, I think Garou, just on a visual level, was able to turn so many heads back when it came out, much less over the past 20-something plus years that it's existed. The visuals are the first things that grab you in these games, in the same way that, like, the visuals are what grab you in a game like Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, right? They are really, truly incredible what they were able to pump out of that old MVS engine and to make that stuff actually perform at the level it did. And the same thing was with Capcom with the CPS3 stuff. So all I'm saying is that there's already a legacy with Garou and Mark of the Wolves that is based on visuals, that is based on incredible visuals and what the heck they are doing with this game to make it look ridiculous. And I feel like they have to sort of try to match that. I think that I'd like to say that that should be a priority. Yeah, the gameplay is another thing. I'm not really worried about the gameplay. SNK games are fun, man. Unless you do some crazy horse shit like there's a jump button or something in SNK Heroines, I might contest a little bit, but I'm not too worried about the gameplay in SNK games. It mostly is executed pretty well. I like KOF 14, man. It's a fun-ass game. And I like KOF 15. It's a fun-ass game. They have other problems, right, outside of just the gameplay itself, but I'm not too worried about that. I'm mostly curious about, I really hope they can make a game that will really visually appeal to the masses, is what I'm trying to say. That's all very good news. You know, Garou stuff is a long way out, as well as Capcom versus SNK. Practically, you know, confirming that it's a reality from Oda and SNK devs, and we've known this for a long time. Chat, what was one of the biggest gift sub bets that I had on this channel, right? Does anyone remember what one of the largest gift sub bets was? And I might have been too early, right? My foresight might have been looking way too far into the future, and I ended up like calling it way too early. Does anyone remember what it was? It was like 1,000 gift sub bet that a KOF 15 character was going to show up at the end of Street Fighter 5. That the last character was actually going to be like a KOF character in some way. That was my prediction. That was like the beginning of that relationship in some way. But, you know, it's taken quite a bit more time for these things to eventually become reality, and now it's looking like it's going to be more and more of a reality. That there's a very good chance that one of the teams, if not maybe the last team, maybe I predicted this for the wrong game, that one of the teams that is in the latest season of KOF characters could just be like Team Capcom or Team Guest or something, you know? I think I would like Team Guest even more if it had like a Fighting EX Layer character, if it had a Tekken character, and it had a Street Fighter character, right? I think that would be amazing. But if we did the wrong prediction and that ends up happening for like the opposite end, where KOF 15 ends up getting a Street Fighter 6 character or something like that, that could be the beginning.